Hi there and welcome to my channel. My name is Teacher Ilona Smith, and on this channel I post videos for grade 10, 11 and grade 12 for business studies. Today we are looking at chapter 2 for grade 11, which is the challenges of the business environments. I hope you will enjoy this. Challenges of the business environments. Let's kick it. Here is the book that I've made use of to create the slides for today's video. I have used this information word for word, as you all would know, and remember that in business studies we do need to write it word for word. I was afraid that just by changing a few words I would change the entire context, and that's not what I want to do on my channel. So I've kept it word for word, as that's what the exams require of you, and that you can study from my videos for revision and just extra knowledge for business studies. So today we're going to be looking at the challenges for the micro, macro, and market environments. If you'd like a recap on these three environments from grade 10, I do have those videos, and you're welcome to check out my channel for those videos as well. All right, introduction. So my previous video, we dealt with topic 1, which we were introduced to the examination of the control factors for these three environments. And we saw how they can influence both internally and externally on the business. Some of these factors can be controlled while remembering others cannot. So it presents challenges for the business. This topic, we are going to focus on the challenges of these three environments by classifying them according to micro, macro, and market. So the table on the next slide will demonstrate these challenges. So there's just an overview of all the challenges that we will go through. So in micro, we've got the following challenges: difficult employees, lack of vision and mission, lack of adequate management skills, unions, strikes and go-slows, employee absenteeism, high employee turnover, and then a shortage of skills amongst employees. In the market environment, we are looking at competition, shortage of suppliers, changes in consumer behavior, demographics and psychographics, as well as the social cultural factors. For the macro environment, we are looking at the changes in income levels, the political changes, contemporary legal legislation, labor restrictions, micro-lending, and then global and international challenges, social values and demographics, as well as social economic issues. All right, so let's look at the microenvironment to begin with. Many factors in the microenvironment can threaten the profitability and therefore the survival of a business. These internal threats present a challenge to the business and to the entrepreneurs who have to come up with strategies to address them. So for example, there's a conflict amongst your employees that needs to be addressed properly. Otherwise, it can destroy the work ethic, it can disrupt the organizational culture, and it can affect the decision-making structures within the business. The conflict between employees is not the only likely challenge that the microenvironment will face. So here on the next slide are some that they will face. So in the diagram below, we mentioned them. Let's dive into the meat for each of these. So difficult employees. These are employees who do not support the vision and the goals of the business. Their actions may lead to conflict in the workplace, which could then break down the team spirit. Employees that always complain about the work system and the processes. Employees that are lazy and not committed to doing their work. This may cause delays and therefore deadlines will not be met. Just with this chapter, before we go any further, I just want to mention that this is a very nice chapter. How they like to ask us is they like to have a scenario where they'll say, in the above scenario, so you need to do 3 things. You first need to mention the environment. So is it micro, macro, or market? And then you need to quote a challenge from the scenario above. So it may say, the manager has noticed during lunch breaks that employees are always complaining about how the business is run. So then you would say micro, because remember, it's internal. Okay, so micro, because it's internal, it's our employees inside. And then you would quote to say that, you would quote the whole sentence to say that the manager has noticed that the employees complain a lot about the management systems. Then you would have to state what challenge it is, which would be difficult employees. So do you see how they can ask a typical question like this? So it's important to know all the headings and just a little bit of meat about every single heading under the 3 different environments. All right, moving on. Shortage of skilled employees. If employees are not well trained, their performance will not meet the required standards set by the business. This could then lead to poor customer service, which will negatively impact the business image of the business. Businesses may lose customers to other competitors who will then have better services. Lack of vision and mission. Lack of vision and mission means that management staff have difficult ideas about the goals of the business. It could lead to conflict and negatively affect the productivity. Businesses will not be able to allocate resources effectively, and they may struggle to succeed. So it's important that we remind our employees what is the mission, the vision, the goals and objectives. So where are we wanting this business to go? And in that way we will see, is there a lack in the mission and vision? Also, we can identify if they are still relevant, and do our employees even know them and understand them? So if that is lacking, obviously it's going to affect and have a ripple effect going downwards. Lack of adequate management skills. Managers who do not have the necessary management skills will not be able to lead, direct, and control personnel and resources in the business. This will lead to businesses not being able to achieve their goals and objectives. If the departments are poorly managed, then resources will be wasted and the business's productivity and profitability will therefore decrease. A manager with poor management skills may struggle in dealing with subordinates, which may lead to unhappy and frustrated workforce. Okay, I know you guys are still in school, but once you get into the working world, it's very important that the managers and the directors have these management skills and they know how to handle themselves in conflict and difficult situations, and they know how to lead their employees. Then we have unions. Unions are organizations that are established to protect the interests and rights of employees in the workplace. Some unions make demands that are impossible for businesses to meet. This then will create tension between management and employees. Okay, often when we hear about unions, it's because unions are fighting and they're getting into collective bargaining sessions in order to increase the amount of wage that has been increased for the year. So perhaps, let's say the employees want an 8 or 10% increase and the company is only providing 2%. You can see how this is creating tension because obviously the workers are looking for a certain percentage and the managers don't want to give it. So this is definitely a challenge within the micro environment. Don't be confused. Unions are external. Technically, yes, but remember your employees are part of a union and your employees are internal, and the unions deal with everything internally in the business, therefore making them micro. Strikes and go-slows. Strikes and go-slows are examples of industrial action that may be organized by a trade union and have a negative impact on the business operations. When managers and employees cannot sort out their differences, employees may engage in a strike or a go-slow. A strike means employees refuse to go to work or they do not work until their complaints have been addressed by the business. The business loses many hours of production time for the period of a strike. A go-slow means that employees report for duty as normal, but deliberately work at a slower pace. the business will not be able to meet its target and profitability may be decreased. Now we're moving on to market. Remembering with market, we have limited, less, or partial control, but we can influence this market, and it's the immediate external environment. Several factors in the market environment could threaten the survival and success of a business. So in topic 1, we learned about a business that it has limited or less control over the market environment. However, it's possible to influence the challenges that are presented by the market environment and to respond to them in a way that ensures that the success of the business. Some challenges in the market environment are more easily influenced than others. So for example, it's easier for a business to influence their suppliers than to influence their customers, than it is to influence their competitors. Let's discuss these challenges. So, starting off, competition. Competition refers to businesses that produce or sell the same kind of goods or they render the similar services. If a business cannot match the quality or the price of the goods or services of its competitors, then it may lose its customers. Increased competition forces businesses to decrease their prices, and so their profit margins are decreased. This may lead to some businesses closing down because they are not able to cover the cost of production. So you can see how our competitors are infringing and causing a challenge for our business. In the next chapter, we will be dealing with how to adapt to these challenges, but in this chapter, we're just looking at what are the challenges. Now we're looking at shortage of suppliers. Every business needs raw materials to produce its goods and services. Without the availability of raw materials, a business cannot produce its products or services to meet the demand of its target markets. Businesses depend on suppliers for their raw materials and inputs. If the supply of raw materials is disrupted, the business's productivity and profitability will also decrease. If a supplier is incapable of delivering raw materials on time, in the right quantities, and of the right quality and price, it will cause a business to lose customers, not meet sales targets, and to suffer decrease in profits. So, should your supplier delay bringing in product or not have the amount of products on hand that they can supply to you, you can see the ripple effect of this. The customers are going to see it as your company is inefficient and it's not run properly. They won't see it as it's the supplier that is to blame. So it's very, very important that we pick the correct supplier and that we iron all these things out, and we try to shorten these delays and prevent them from occurring over and over again. Changes in consumer behavior. This one happens often. So economic conditions or fashions can cause changes in consumer taste and preferences, and this could lead to fewer sales. Businesses therefore need to work harder in their marketing efforts or to adapt their products and services to meet the requirements of the target market. Changes in consumer behavior may lead to stockpiling or reduce profit margins. Stockpiling is what the word is exactly. Your stock is piling up. You have too much stock and people are not buying your stock because perhaps it's out of fashion. They've lost interest in it. Perhaps it was a trend and now it has phased out for whatever reason. Businesses are forced to continuously study these changes so that they can provide goods and services that customers will always need. So it's important for us to see what are the latest trends, what are customers looking out for, what are they wanting. But to remember that some of these trends are just fads. They last for a few months and then they are over. So it becomes very difficult to create an entire business idea on one of these fashion trends, because is there the likelihood that it may continue? Maybe not. So we just need to make sure that we're staying up to date and we know what are the changes for customers and customer preferences. A typical example would be Way back in the day, we used to advertise in newspapers, on TV, radio, or give out pamphlets on the side of the road. Nowadays, if you're looking at advertising, it has transformed. Yes, there's still adverts on TV. There's adverts on Facebook. There's adverts on TikTok. Yes, now businesses do advertise on these social media platforms, but they also make use of radio. And the amount of businesses that I've seen that advertise their products on TikTok is quite a lot. But you can see how, because that's where the world is going. If I'm going to stand at the robot, I'm going to give out a pamphlet, people might not be as attracted as to me making a video on how I make my products, telling you about my products and introducing you about my products. So that's where we can look at the changes in consumer behavior. Then demographics. This refers to the statistics of the population. So we're looking at gender, age, level of education, and level of income. The challenge faced by businesses is that there are constant changes in the demographic characteristics of their target market. For example, people are living longer, and this could lead to an increased demand of goods and services. When lots of people immigrate, it could lead to a decrease in the number of consumers, but also for the skilled labor. Psychographics. This is where we look at the consumer's lifestyle and their behavior. It includes their attitudes, their interests, their opinions, desires, and lifestyle. Businesses must be aware of the consumer's lifestyle and behavior. This will enable them to run more effective marketing campaigns. However, it could be difficult to determine the psychographics of a target market because customers' lifestyles and behaviors change frequently. So one lifestyle that I've noticed is the huge outrage of Pep Home all of a sudden. I mean, it's all over my TikTok, it's all over my Facebook. I think I watched 1 or 2 videos and now that's my algorithm, where people like you and I will go to Pep Home and then they'll do a Pep Home haul to show what have they purchased. And I must say this, there's a Pep Home at like, not every corner, but there are quite a couple Pep Homes. And I think why they're making such a good go at business is because you're getting similar products, but at a much reduced rate. It's much cheaper to buy products from Pep Home and the quality is very good. I've bought quite a few things for my house and I must say I'm not disappointed in the quality of Pep Home's goods versus going to another shop like Sheet Street at home that you pay exorbitant prices for. So this is what I mean by looking at the lifestyle and looking at the behavior. People want to make their houses better and have storage options and have little baskets where they can store things, but they don't want to pay exorbitant prices for these things. So being aware of this, they want the quality, but they want it to be affordable too. It's just a simple example. Then, what are the ways that we can overcome competition in the market environment? So, businesses must ensure that their product is unique and it's different from goods and services for the target market. Businesses need to provide more personalized services by being responsive to the consumer's needs and wants. Goods and services must be priced lower than competitors' goods and services in the market. Businesses must produce high-quality products and services that customers might be interested in. Then they need to create a positive image or publicity through regular engagement in community development projects. Businesses must improve on customer service and keep customers happy. Businesses must create a positive outlook by regularly renovating their premises and improving their systems. Businesses must undertake good marketing campaigns that will draw the attention of the target market. Businesses must offer low-cost extras such as improved credit terms, loyalty schemes, and so on. Businesses must ensure that they have well-trained and dedicated employees that create a better working atmosphere. Now we're moving on to macro. Again, remembering macro is the broader external environment, and we have no control over this environment. We can adapt to the changes, but we cannot control it whatsoever. So although businesses cannot influence or control the macro environment, they must have a clear understanding of what challenges are possessed in this environment. These challenges can have an adverse effect on the operations of a business. So let's learn about these and how it changes for a business. So changes in income levels. The number of goods and services that consumers can produce is determined by their net income. Net income is the gross income minus all your deductions. So when consumers' net income decreases, they are only able to buy goods and services that are necessary, and so the profitability and productivity of the business will decrease. So your net income is your money that you take home. It's your take-home salary. So if that does decrease, then obviously it's going to affect what you buy and purchase. So if there is a luxury or designer store in your area, you may not buy their product anymore because now you have less income to work with. And you may then move into survival mode where you're only going to buy the things that, as it mentions, that it's necessary and the things that you need. Unemployment, high interest rates and high inflation rates, or an increase in taxes leaves consumers with less money to spend on goods and services. Reduced spending will lower the profits for businesses. Political changes. The government decides its own objectives and ideologies. With a change in government, businesses have to adapt to new laws or new policies that may come into play. A change in government can result in political instability, which can scare away possible investors and tourists, and in turn threaten the survival of a business. So it's election year this year, not that I want to get political in my videos, I try and steer away from that, but it is election year this year, and perhaps we might see a new government, we might see a changed government, we might see a different government, maybe the same government, but just improved, hopefully. And because of this, it could cause political instability or unrest. Perhaps people are not happy with the new government. Perhaps they're not happy that the old government is still in power. And maybe perhaps they're happy. But there's always someone has an opinion about something. So because of this, it can scare away investors if the country goes into unrest. And also it can then threaten your survival of your business. Because if you're not getting tourists and investors and people are not purchasing from your business because of all these strikes and unrest, it creates a challenge and a problem for your business. In some countries, there is a high level of political unrest and civil war. That makes it very difficult for businesses to operate there effectively and profitability. Contemporary legal legislation. The government has passed laws to check the activities and operations of businesses. Businesses that fail to comply with these laws could be fined, or the owners could be sent to prison. Businesses must comply with legislation in place, which is not always easy to do. For example, the Employment Equity Act. You guys deal with this act in grade 12, so listen carefully. This compels businesses to give preference to previously disadvantaged individuals when appointing new employees into the business. Sometimes this is difficult to do because candidates might not have the right qualifications or expertise. Other new laws that may present a challenge to the business is the National Credit Act, the Consumer Protection Act, and the Labor Relations Act. We deal with all three of these in grade 12 next year. Then we have labor restrictions. The government has passed several laws, like the ones that we've mentioned, that pose restrictions on business operations. Laws such as the Labor Relations Act, where employees can only work a certain amount, a maximum amount of time during the day, and they have to have a lunch break, and they have all these rights. This might pose restrictions for the business, and the business needs to comply with these laws. These laws create a legal framework that protects employees from being exploited by their employers, and it also restricts the practices of employers. Some employers find this legal framework restrictive, while others see it as an important part of protecting the rights of employees and ensuring democracy within the workplace. Microlending. This refers to individuals or businesses that grant small loans to those who cannot get credit from commercial banks. They normally charge higher interest rates and their repayment period is shorter than those of commercial banks. There is little protection for those who make use of these loans because microlenders are not regulated by the South African Banking Act. And so they do not subscribe to the Code of Banking Practices of South Africa. Then we have globalization and international trade. This refers to the exchange of products, services, capital, and labor across national borders. This is businesses are competing with international businesses for local customers. Labor is cheap in some countries. These countries can manufacture products at reduced prices and sell their excess products in other countries at lower pricing, and this is called dumping. Dumping makes it difficult for businesses to compete in the global market. Migration of skilled labor can result in local skills shortages. And the benefit of globalization is that it can lead to faster and easier transfer of knowledge and skills between countries. A good example here of labor is cheap and they can sell their products cheaper is the company Shein. Again, it's all over my TikTok as well. I see a lot of people doing a Shein haul. And if you look at the price of Shein goods versus the price that you would pay for the same goods in South African stores, it's ridiculously cheap, which is amazing for us as customers. Okay, we love it. It's great. Considering the high inflation rate currently in South Africa, it's wonderful. But what does this do for the businesses? Instead of me going to go buy product at Pep Home, Checkers, at home, I'm now buying it from Shein. So do you see how they're losing a lot of customers because of this global and international trade? And that is the challenge that it's posing for these businesses. Then social values and demographics. So social values, these include the beliefs, norms, and values that are shared by a particular society or a group of people. It influences customers' buying habits because consumers buy products they identify with. Social values can impact customers' buying habits. It includes attitudes towards saving or brand loyalty, and businesses cannot control the consumer's social values. Demographics. This refers to the characteristic of the population, so such as the age or race and so on. Changes in the characteristics of demographics of population will affect the product or services that businesses need to produce. Entrepreneurs need to remain informed of changes in the demographics. Socioeconomic issues. Socioeconomic issues like crime, poverty, HIV/AIDS, and corruption will influence business operations in different ways. Many businesses suffer loss because of crime and corruption. Businesses have to spend a lot of money on insurance in order to secure themselves against crime, which leads to a higher production cost and a decreased profit. The HIV/AIDS pandemic has contributed to the illness and death of many production members of society. This further leads to a decrease in the size of the labor force and a decrease in the size of the consumer markets. Examples of contemporary legislation that may affect business operations. So we have the Labor Relations Act. This legislation regulates the relationship between the employer and employees when resolving conflict in the workplace. The Basic Conditions of Employment Act. This legislation provides the minimum acceptable standard for any employment policy. It describes the conditions of the employment. The Compensation of Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act. This legislation provides compensation for employees who have sustained injuries or contract diseases while on duty. It will ensure that these employers provide their employees with a safe and healthy working environment. The Skills Development Act. This legislation ensures that the employers contribute towards the education and training of their employees. The Consumer Protection Act. This act promotes and advances the social and economic welfare of consumers in South Africa. The National Credit Act. This act was established to protect both the businesses, consumers from negligent lending practices that could result in over-indebtedness by the consumers. Employment Equity Act. This act is there to eliminate unfair discrimination, such as discrimination against race, color, age, gender, religion, or disability in the workplace. Broad-based Black economic empowerment. This act ensures that previously disadvantaged individuals fully participate in the economy. Then here's a little mind map recap of everything that we went through. So you'll just see there's a little snippet of the different sections that we've been through within this video and for this chapter. Alright, so that's the end of the video. Here are the resources that I've made use of. The first resource is the textbook that I showed you in the beginning that I used to create these slides. It's a very nice textbook to use. It's got activities and even practice questions that you can make use of to prepare yourself for the exams and tests coming up. I would like to say thank you very much for watching this video today. I hope that it was helpful. If so, please give it a thumbs up. Please do comment down below if you have anything to add or any questions that you may have. I don't mind. I do get to all my comments, and I will assist as best as I can. So thank you again for watching this video. All the best for this term and everything that's coming up, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye for now.